Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So I've just listened to the whole audiobook of Michael Jackson's Moonwalk. So here's the thing, is that the book jumps around. It's kind of tricky for me to go back and have to re-listen to the whole thing, find the pieces of what I need, then find the corresponding evidence so I could build a video. It's just a time thing. It's just a thing that it's incredibly difficult for me right now to do that, I'm trying to do the best I can and stuff, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one part. I'm going to show you some corresponding evidence. I'm going to show you the kind of stuff of how it takes me to build a video and how it just takes time. But so then I'm just going to talk about other pieces of what I've heard in the book. And it's one of those things. It's like anybody out there that's read the book or listened to the audio book, if you want to critique me and say I'm wrong, go ahead. It's like, I'm not wrong. It's like, if you can prove I'm wrong, prove I'm wrong. You can't just come and put one stupid comment and say I'm wrong. Prove what I'm saying is wrong. Then you go find it in the audiobook and prove that what I'm saying is not right and say that it's not in there. It's just ridiculous of the stuff I have to do, so I'm going to show you some stuff and then I'm going to tell you some things that are in the book, and you just got to trust me a little bit. Believe that what I say is in the book and shit, right? So this part's actually just, it's one of these little things that's super important. And it's what it is Michael Jackson's going to invoke the name of Robert Frost, a poet, and he's going to say the name Robert Frost. And it's one of these things, it's like, he specifically says that name because of what I'm going to show you next, because it's a super important part of the Billie Jean song, right? And this is why he specifically names Robert Frost. So here's this little part. Here, listen how he says the name Robert Frost.
There are so many things all around us to be thankful for. Wasn't it Robert Frost who wrote about the world a person can't see in a leaf?
Okay, so that's not Michael Jackson's voice because it's the audiobook. It's somebody else's narrating and stuff, right? But see how he says, he gives a quote from a Robert Frost. He says, wasn't it Robert Frost who said that you can see so much of the world through a leaf? Something like that. He says something like that, okay? So the thing is that he said Robert Frost. And so the thing about that is that Robert Frost wrote this little, it's quick, these quick little poems. This Robert Frost does stuff like this, right? So this is a little poem by Robert Frost called The Secret Sits. Okay, well, listen to this.
The Secret Sits by Robert Frost. We dance round a ring and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows.
Okay, we dance around a ring and suppose. Okay, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. And that's what I say is that the song Billie Jean is that there's a secret. That's what the song Billie Jean's about. The secret that sits in the middle and knows the truth. And we dance around a circle, a ring, and suppose. Okay, so right here, this is in the Billie Jean song. Listen to this part right here. Okay, so what do you mean I'm the one? Okay, so they're dancing around that circle. They're dancing around a ring and suppose because he's confused. What do you mean I'm the one? Okay, but the secret sits in the middle and knows. So who will dance on the floor in the round? Who's going to dance on the floor around the secret? The secret sits in the middle and knows the truth, okay? So this is where the dance begins between him and Diana. When she tells him the truth of her, she says, I'm the one, okay? So they start that's where this dance begins, and the dance revolves around the secret that sits in the middle and knows the truth. The truth of Diana is the real mother of Michael Jackson. That's what this is about. This is Michael Jackson, the artist, and he's conveying his message through an artistic way of which he has the artistic ability to do that. And he's got the knowledge and stuff. He's studied the poets and stuff. He knows stuff like that. These are these integral details of what Michael Jackson was doing, these subtleties that nobody could ever pick up on. Because part of what Michael Jackson is doing is he understands that the public is dumb. And you have to make things simple for them. You give them a beat, you give them a beat to bob their head to, right? And then you make these nice little catchphrases, Billie Jean's not my lover. She's just a girl who claims that I'm the one, but the kid is not my son. Okay, those are just like simple little words that the public can follow along to. They can follow along to these words. They can follow along to that simple little beat. But if you want to talk about Michael Jackson as the artist, to follow along with that, that's going to be much more difficult to do. That's a whole different thing. But that's what Michael's really interested in. He does a simple little things and he gives it to the public in a simple fashion and stuff. But he is doing something much more difficult, much more complicated in the origins of what's going on there. So now in the book, the Moonwalk book. Okay, so in the Moonwalk book, one of the big things of that I really, when I hear it, I hear a big, much different story than what people are hearing. So Joseph was early on talking about going to Motown. As early as he starts the Jackson 5, it's really that he's got a vision on Motown, because the way that he's creating the music for the Jackson 5 is that he's creating music that he thinks can be like interesting to like the Motown sound. He's trying to do that. But what I'm saying is that that right there is one of the things that shows that Michael came from Motown. It's because Berry Gordy has his sights set on Motown, and he's not just the music. He's not just the music company, the record company. He's trying to emulate that sound. He's trying to make a more young, fresh hip hop, poppy kind of sound and stuff, right? That's the music of what he's trying to build the kids and trying to train them to learn that kind of stuff. But what I say is that Joseph would not have done that. That would have not been his true nature of what the music and the sound of what he was going for, because Joseph was a blues guitar player. Okay, so Joseph, if he's got his eyes set on making a group, and his visions would be towards Chicago, the Chicago blues, that's right there. Chicago is right above Gary, Indiana. That's the Chicago. That's like when they talked about Meeting Catherine in the clubs, that's in Chicago. Everything's in Chicago. That's the scene that Joseph knows. So if Joseph was going to start making a music group, he would have been catering towards the music of the area of the people that were close to him and the people that he knows. And so let me show you this. This is Joe Jackson's brother, Luther. Okay, so now listen to this really quick.
Yeah. Playing with Jimmy Reed, Howlin' Wolf, and all them guys.
Howlin' Wolf.
Right.
Okay, Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf. Okay, he's talking about that. And then so they're going to play this little bit more, because I want you to hear the girl say, just out of the blue, she says, oh, he hated Diana Ross. And it's like, why would Joe hate Diana Ross if they're living in her house and Diana Ross presents the Jackson 5, which instantly like brings up the Jackson's name to a much higher level, that she's doing so much? Why would he hate her so much? The thing is because she was strong-arming him, and she was building a relationship with Michael, and she was doing things outside the family that Joe didn't have control of. And if Joe ever spoke up, Diana could come right out and say, that's my kid. That's why Joe hates Diana Ross. So listen to this part right here.
What Uncle Joseph used to do.
Joe had his man too. He didn't like Diana Ross.
Yeah, he didn't like Diana Ross. Just out of nowhere. What does that have to do with anything, right? Okay, so Luther, this is Luther Jackson. He's talking about people that he'd play with and stuff, and he's saying Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf, okay? And so this is what I'm trying to show you about. This is a movie called Cadillac Records, okay? Cadillac Records is Chess Records. That's in Chicago. This Chess Records is huge. Before Motown, the really big record company that had all these really good artists on it, there's major shit. Like Chess Records even got connections to Motown and stuff. Like Berry Gordy was writing songs for people that were on the Chess record label. I mean, there's so much stuff there. But Chess Records is the big one, right? And so let me just show you this piece of this is a piece of that movie Cadillac Records, and that, like you just heard Luther Jackson, he said Jimmy Reed and Howlin' Wolf, okay? So this is the Howlin' Wolf part from the movie Cadillac Records, but like I said, it's not, Cadillac Records is based upon Chess Records. That's what it actually is.
He was the big bad wolf. Now the story is he got his name from a dead man who came out the cemetery and tuned his guitar. And He been howling at the moon ever since. Oh, stop your train. Let up. Oh, all right. Oh.
See, that's Howlin' Wolf. This is Chess Records. These are people that Joe Jackson knew. This is the music scene that's right there above his house. This is the music scene that Joseph Jackson is in. So Joseph Jackson, when he started training his children to make music, his entire vision and the style of music of which Joe Jackson would have been playing would have been Chicago blues. He would have been focused on going to chess. We're going to Chess Records. That's the natural origin path that would have originated if it was organic. If the Jacksons was an organic thing that naturally developed, this is what it would have been. And so now this is where I'm just going to go talk about a little bit about the Motown book. So what happens is in the Motown book is that you constantly hear him talking about Motown, we're going to Motown. What actually even he says in the book is that they had got offered a television gig. They were going to go to New York and be on television, okay? They were going, the Jackson 5, they're going to New York, they're going to be on television, but at this time they're signed to Steeltown Records. This is the other thing. They're signed to Steeltown. That's a record company from Gary, Indiana. They're signed to Steeltown, right? So their vision should be like thinking, okay, we're going to go to New York, we're going to go do that television gig, and then if he's thinking about stepping up to a bigger record company, his vision should have been toward Chicago. In the Chicago blues scenes, Chess Records, we're going to go to Chess Records. It should have been more that way. Okay, but it's not. He's all thinking about going to Motown and stuff, and what happens in the book is they say they were getting ready to go do that performance on live television and stuff in New York, but then Motown called, and it's like, so they instantly, Joe tells the kids, we're not going to do that television show. Joe cancels that for an audition at Motown. Not even a signed contract. They're not guaranteed a contract. You got to think about, like, in a world, the organic way, the natural way of how this would have developed. Would Joseph Jackson actually turn down that contract? Would he have turned down the chance to do a live appearance on a New York show that's going to be on television? Would he have turned that down for an audition at Motown? Because remember, you got to think it's organic. He doesn't know that they're going to be signed. If there's no connection about what I'm saying about the Michael kid, and if that stuff's not true, would he turn down that live television performance just to go do an audition at Motown? But because my story says Michael comes from Motown. He was given to him from Berry Gordy. He's the child of Smokey Robinson and Diana Ross. That Joseph is going to Motown because he knows he's got leverage to go to Motown and strong arm him. That's what he knows. That's why his focus is all Motown. And that's why he instantly drops that gig to do the live show. He drops it because he comes and he says, he tells the kids, we're not going to do the live television show because Motown called. Okay, and Motown called to give him an audition. Okay, so now, when they go do the audition at Motown, right, this is what I say. I say that Motown, you got to look at it in the natural, organic way. If Motown is looking at the Jacksons, what Motown, first, you got to look at it as Berry Gordy, as a businessman. Berry Gordy knows if he signs all these kids, he's got to hire tutors for them. He's got to give them special education, and he's got to do a lot more of things that have to occur because he's got to take care of all these children. There's much more legal things. There's legal issues when you're talking about a band full of kids, okay? There's legal issues. Now, the other thing is that the kids are not going to be playing the music. Berry Gordy has a house band at Motown. Okay, so Berry Gordy, not only does he not need the kids, the kids are not going to be used on the album recording. I've told people that that's the way it worked, but Michael says it in the book. In the book, he says that when they do their first recording at Motown, that the house band recorded this actual music. The house band recorded the music because he specifies that Joe told the kids, okay, kids, now you're going to have to recreate that music. You're going to have to get better because now you're going to have to be recreating the music of these professionals who actually recorded the stuff. And so you guys are going to have to be recreating that and acting like it was you that did it. So Joe had told him, you guys are going to have to even try harder and make sure that you get this perfect. So that was totally clarified in the book that the Jacksons are not the playing the instruments on the recordings of the first albums. That's the house band that does that, okay? So now, Berry Gordy doesn't need them to make the music. Berry Gordy does not need the kids to make the music. Berry Gordy, he knows that if he signs the kids, he's going to have to give them special tutoring and classes. There's all kinds of legal issues there's problems there. This is what I've said is that Berry Gordy, if you look at it from the organic nature of how it would have developed, Berry Gordy just would have signed Michael Jackson. If he wanted one of them, he would have taken the artist, the Michael, because he would have known, okay, I have the music, I can build this kid. This is the talent. He would have said, I'll take the chance with the one kid. He's the talent. I don't want to have to deal with all the other kids, plus having to deal with Joseph Jackson, trying to be the manager and trying to tell him. All of that stuff would have negated Berry Gordy's interest in the kids. Berry Gordy would have said, no, I see the problems, there's a lot of problems here. So Berry Gordy, what I say is Berry Gordy never would have signed the Jackson 5 if it was of an organic nature. But what happens is, my story, when you look at my story that Michael's given to Joseph from Berry Gordy, that Michael's the son of Diana and Smokey, and that Berry Gordy was the one who insisted on getting rid of the kid, and now that kid has come back to them with all this talent. So now look at it from my perspective. Berry Gordy now sees the child has returned, the child that he gave away, and now the child's returned, right, with all this talent. So, and Berry Gordy now looks at that and sees that this is something that God has done. This is something that now he's dealing with God's will. Right? So now he's not going to be so quick to go against God's will. He knows that this is the kid of Smokey and Diana. That kid was given away because of his request to get rid of the kid so they could build Motown. That kid then went and became a great artist on his own. As a young kid, the kid comes back, he's got all this talent. Barry's looking at it like this is God's saying. God is doing this, right? And now he knows now that Joseph is in control of that kid. Okay, and Joseph is not going to allow Berry just to remove that kid from his family and take control. Joseph is saying, if you want the kid, you got to take all the band, the whole band. You got to bring all of us. So now Berry knows that if he wants the kid, he's not going to let the kid go because that's God. He's going against God. That's why he's not going to let that kid go, because now he knows that this is a much bigger thing of what we're dealing with here. This is a God's plan type of thing. So Barry's not going to let that kid go. And so Berry knows now if he wants the kid, he's got to bring on the whole Jackson 5 thing. And then since he realizes that that's the way it's got to be, that's what causes him to start looking at the kids and thinking, well, what can I do with the kids? How can I arrange this? And then he starts seeing the possibilities. What I say is that Berry Gordy never would have saw those possibilities because he just would have seen the negative aspects of what it meant to be dealing with this kid. And Berry Gordy never would have signed the Jackson 5. He would have offered Michael a deal. And if Joe did not accept it, then he would have said, okay, thank you for coming down. We're going to go about our own way. Because he doesn't need, by the time the Jacksons get to Motown, Berry Gordy's huge already. He's got a vision. He's getting ready to start building a movie company. He's moving to LA. He's moving his whole operations to LA. He doesn't need the kids. He didn't need it. He wouldn't have seen the vision of what could be with the Jackson 5. That's the organic nature of how it would have developed properly. But only my story interjects with the real truth to show you what actually did happen, and I actually explain it. That's what I'm saying is like, my story is the one that actually explains the true nature of the events that are occurring here, right? So then you get where they move to Los Angeles, and Michael's talking about there's a thing where he's living in Diana Ross's house. He said, but so what he says in the book, he says that he was living in Berry Gordy's house at nighttime and Diana Ross's house during the daytime. He said that's kind of like there was a weird thing. He said because they lived like on the same street in Beverly Hills. Okay, but so now I know the thing is Diana Ross, that house that she bought in Beverly Hills, that was the first house of which she bought. And her mother's like living in that house with her and stuff, right? That's her house. That's her family house. So the Berry Gordy thing, now that's the thing. It's like, okay, when he says he was living in Berry Gordy's house, it's like, okay, but is Berry Gordy living in that house, or is it just a house that Berry Gordy owns? Because that's what I'm saying, is that Berry Gordy would have bought a house and he would have rented it out to the Jacksons. So they would have been living in that house. So there would be no need for them to ever be staying in Diana's house. And you're like putting it, so you're putting a burden on her. You're telling me that she's just going to welcome, she just buys her first house in Beverly Hills, and now she's just going to welcome all these kids into her house. But no, the reason that she wants the kids in the house is because she wants to rekindle the relationship with Michael Jackson, her son. That's why she welcomes them in. That's why these things are occurring. And like I said, the Berry Gordy house situation, we'd have to get more information upon how that actually worked and stuff, right? Okay, so then one of the other things that occurred here, because I've told people, is that when the Jacksons left Motown, they couldn't take the name the Jackson 5 because Motown owned that. And this is a part with the house thing. What I'm saying is that this is the way that they operate. And this is how I tell you, like with the way that with the Jacksons coming, I know the way that Berry Gordy operated Motown. There's things of what he did and stuff, the way he operated that company. So Michael said that when they left Motown, and he says it in the book. He says, when we left Motown, we couldn't take the name the Jackson 5 because Motown said they owned the rights to that name. Okay, because that's what happens. When Berry Gordy's going to sign them, Berry Gordy would force them to turn over the ownership of the name, the Jackson 5, because he knows the value of it and in the marketing and so there's all that stuff. So that's a thing where Joseph Jackson just turned the name over to him. He just allowed that to happen. So I'm saying he just allowed him. He's like, that's like begging. He's like, there's weird stuff there about what occurred. And Joe just gave it up. Joe gave that name up. He gave it up because there's the thing that he was focused on Motown. And the reason he's focused on Motown is because that's where he thinks he's got the leverage, and the best place for him is with the kid. He thinks that's the best place. But in reality, at that time, he didn't need to do it. He had Michael. Michael had the talent. He could have went and got his own, like he did. He got his own contract at Steeltown. He could have went and done that TV show. Somebody else would have been offering a contract, and it could have been smart enough to understand, don't sign over the name the Jackson 5, because that's incredibly valuable. All the marketing, all the t-shirts and all the toys and everything that can be generated from who owns that name. Motown owns that name. You know, so whatever, when you see products out there with Jackson 5, the Jacksons are getting a very small percentage of that. Motown's the one that owns all that stuff. And that's what I'm saying. If Berry Gordy did that, then it shows you that that's the way he is. He's business minded. And like I said, it's in the book. Michael says that when they left, they couldn't take the name because Motown owned it. So I'm showing you that that's the behavioral patterns of what occurs with Berry Gordy and Motown. So when Berry Gordy saw the Jackson 5, he would have been thinking like a businessman. He would not have signed the kids. I don't need the kids. I've got the musicians and stuff, right? The kids, I don't need them. We can hire them like later to go on tour with them, but now you're hiring them just as like hired musicians. They're not like signed to Motown in the way that like being a band and shit. It's a big different thing. He doesn't have to provide everything for them. It's just a whole different situation. It's not that's what I'm saying. The kids never would have been on tour. That never would have happened. Joe would have he would have had his own adults that he didn't have to hire tutors for and shit to give him school training and shit. He would have looked at it as a business deal. Michael's the talent. I'm taking Michael. If you want to come to Motown, I'll sign Michael and I'll work with him, but I'm not going to deal with all these other kids. It wouldn't have happened that way. The same thing with the house. When they go to California, there's no reason for them to be staying in Diana Ross's house because Berry Gordy would have bought a house and he would have rented it back to the Jacksons, and that would have been where the Jacksons would have been living. They would have been living in that house. There's no reason for them to be going over to Diana's and having this all. There's no reason for that stuff until you interject my story that Diana is trying to rekindle the relationship with Michael. And like I said, that's what it says in the book here, Moonwalk. It says, Michael tells you that Diana would take him out alone and teach him in the ways of art and stuff like that. That she was building, there was an obvious relationship that was taking place with Diana and Michael that was occurring outside of the Jackson family. And that's why you got that girl there in the video saying, oh, he didn't like Diana Ross. Yeah, because Diana, there was other stuff going on there. And like I'm saying, I could show you all these things in the book, but there's little things and it takes me a long time. The book, like the audio book, it's freaking almost 5 hours and stuff, right? So for me to go back and listen to it again, find the pieces, then I got to find the corresponding evidence, I got to build the video. It just takes a lot of time, when it's just much easier for me to just get on and tell you this is what it said in the book. Let me explain what's actually going on. Look at the real nature of what the environment is taking place. Would Joe Jackson have built, and okay, what he also said, Michael said that, Joe had a vision of making, Joe, he gave Joe credit for having the vision of turning them into like a pop group, right? To making the young music and stuff, right? He said, Joe had the vision. But Joe would not have had that vision. That's what I'm saying. That's not an organic vision of what it would have occurred for Joe Jackson, because Joe Jackson would have been thinking about Chicago, the record companies in Chicago. Joe knows how to play the blues guitar. Joe is friends with people that are in that Chicago blues music scene. That's would have been the organic nature, the vision of what Joe Jackson would have been doing. But the reason that he instantly starts going with the music group the way he's doing it is because what the book shows. He's got his sights set on Motown. Motown's in Detroit. Think about Detroit and Motown. Most of the acts that are coming from Detroit. That's organic. That's the natural process of how it occurs. But for some reason, Joe's wanting to leave the massive music scene in the city of Chicago. It's right there. That's right where he lives. He's a part of that scene. For some reason, he's wanting to forget about that, and he wants to make this music so he can take his kids to Motown. That's not organic. That's not the natural process of events of how it would have naturally occurred. Until you bring my story in, that Michael came from Motown, this is where all the focus then, now he knows what he's doing. He's going to make a poppy hip-hop kind of group, and they're going to dance and sing, and they're going to Motown. Because my story explains all of this stuff constantly over and over and over again. And not only do I show you the flaws in their story's got flaws, it does not hold up. But you interject my story explains it all. I actually explain this stuff. My story is proper. My story properly fits the actual events that are occurring, and their story constantly does not fit the actual natural organic process of how things would have developed. Okay? So that's enough for now. We'll talk to you later.